Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome back to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And Veseloye, it is a lot of back and forth as we predicted, but in the end, as Russia pushes in, Ukraine can push back and gain more territory. And it's back and forth, but every time that Ukraine pushes back, they push Russia back even further. So we are closing in to the end of the battle for Veseloye. Keeping true with the tradition of late, starting off with the ISW map. Nothing new that I can see on their map. This looks the same, Veseloye, but we have some other mappers that we will take a closer look at that may provide some interesting insights. The push down here, no updates on ISW map, but like I said, this push here is out in vast open farmland fields that can't be held or defended. But over here, between these two towns, you have a forest, and Russia will more than likely hold on to that forest, and the territory out in the fields will be either listed as neutral or will fall back in Ukrainian hands because Russia can't hold on to it. But we're going to be talking about some updates on other maps surrounding Veseloye. And we're going to be talking about DeepState for one. DeepState for the longest has had Ukraine. It's been very conservative regarding Veseloye, having Ukraine in the outskirts, no gains to the east or west of Veseloye. But now, all of a sudden, DeepState has listed a vast region to the west as contested, and also allowed Ukraine to push north of this very important main road, indicating Ukraine is contesting a large section to the east of Veseloye. And zooming out, we can see that according to DeepState, Russia is in control of Ubukovka, and for the most part, the entirety of the town. Other mappers have Ubukovka as contested, and we have geolocated images of Ukrainians operating around this area north of this creek, basically, in the outskirts of town, having cut off vital supply routes leading in from the north. And we can also see here that DeepState claims that Ukraine has pushed into the outskirts of this street here. And we have seen Ukrainians storming across these fields earlier last week. Now this is interesting. Now all the Vatniks, all the pro-Russians, you take a look at this, because you're always, oh, you need to use Surak maps. He's so accurate. He's the best mapper. Okay, Surak maps. This is a very pro-Russian map, or mapper and his map. And this is Veseloye, and he has, just like DeepState, said that Ukraine has pushed in to the east, into these outskirts. But not only that, he also has the southern parts of town in Ukrainian control, including Ubukovka in its entirety. And he has also, as we can see, highlighted that the western parts of town around that creek I was talking about is in Ukrainian control. Wow, what's going on here? Okay, all you pro-Russians, you need to decide here now if this is an accurate map or not, because this is very much leaning into the narrative that Veseloye is about to fall and Ukraine is closing in, surrounding the town on all sides. But we will now use these maps to try and figure out an estimate for what is going on around Veseloye. And to get a feel for what's going on, we're gonna use my map. Yes, I have made my own map because it's kind of fun. And so we're trying to use all the sources and combining them all to get a feel for what's happening. And this gives us roughly this map. Here you have Ukraine pushing in control of Ubukovka. They have moved up to the west of Veseloye, along that creek, and are now about, well, in the northern parts of town. They've also pushed out this way, securing the windbreaks over here. Now, DeepState says that this entire region here is contested. May or may not be true, but these open fields are yellow because no one can control the open fields. So what they're fighting for are these windbreaks, and a bit unclear if Ukraine or Russia is in control of these. So I think it makes sense to make all of this terrain that can't be controlled at the moment, with Russia out here in the outskirts of these fields and Ukraine operating down here, as you can see. Same thing for here. We know Ukraine has pushed up, according to the mappers, to the east of Veseloye, and some of the mappers do indicate that Ukraine has crossed these fields and are in control of these windbreaks and are operating in this part of town right here, that street on the outskirts here in the west. These fields, large fields, can't be controlled, so the question is who is in control of this windbreak here and the main road and windbreak here. Unclear. These are paths that Ukraine can advance along, which Russia is probably defending. I've given Russia full control of Veseloye, even though Surak map said that Ukraine has pushed in this far. So keep that in mind, that Ukraine may actually be operating south of this line here in town. But we have Russians in town. We're certain of that, so I've given them the town for now. So Ukrainian positions that we know of makes things rather interesting. Here we have a field that no one can control, but this part here is interesting. This is contested according to some of the mappers. This farm or factory, whatever it is, we know Ukraine has been operating right here south of this factory. So the question is, has Ukraine pushed in and grabbed it, or is Russia still in control of it? Very unclear. What this in combination means, however, very crucially, that Russia cannot utilize this main road to bring in supplies and reinforcements to Veseloye. Earlier, a couple of days ago, Russia made a big push south into these fields in an attempt to secure this main road, to push Ukraine away from it so that they could bring in forces and supplies via this main road. Up here we have a lot of geolocated destroyed Russian equipment trying to push in. So they obviously want to utilize this road. It's the only viable option in supplying Veseloye for the Russians. They have two other options. They look like roads on this map. That's false. If you zoom in, they're like muddy tracks going across these fields and across the farmland. You can use these for bringing in supplies and what have you, but as you can imagine, it's quite easy for vehicles getting stuck, and you can't bring in large numbers of vehicles, especially not when they're heavily loaded with supplies, along this way and this way. And as you can see, Ukraine has cut them as well. So at the moment, it appears as if Ukraine has once again cut all three supply routes leading into Veseloye. Previously, when Ukraine was not this far out, Russia had the option of coming in this way, bringing in reinforcements and supplies. But now, when Ukraine is here, that means Ukraine can open fire across these fields, and that means Russia can't move effectively through here with supplies. They can still move with armored vehicles fighting southward, but I mean they can't bring in logistics this way. That leaves Russia this narrow gap here. But Ukraine is over here. Can Russia reliably bring in logistics this way? I'm sure they can bring in troops. You apply pressure with while you're firing on the Ukrainians over here, and you can move in troops with vehicles, or they're moving along this windbreak here. That is very much doable, but bringing in supplies through here, not an option. Essentially, Veseloye is surrounded and cut off. Russia can move in and out with troops, but they can't move in and out with supplies. So Veseloye is essentially surrounded and cut off at this point, if we take all the mappers and combine them, what they're telling us. So unless Russia can push down this way and open up this road, again, it's pretty much over. Ukraine holding here is a problem, but it's not critical. Russia needs to control this part, this orange bit and this road here. So these fields, this is what Russia needs to control to be able to support Veseloye. And it appears as if Ukraine is steadily pushing northward in this region, and it's going to be difficult for Russia to accomplish this objective in the coming days, I think. I think we're moving steadily towards a situation where Veseloye eventually will fall, especially if Surak maps is correct, that Ukraine has pushed up to this street here going straight through town from east to west, right? That you can see it here. This line, that's a street, continues up this way, and that is the extent of Surak maps. According to Surak maps, how far Ukraine has now pushed into town. So Veseloye, it's about to fall. The battle is basically over. Famous last words. I bet you Russia will do some shenanigans to try and reclaim Veseloye, and will look quite the fool. But the end result will still be the same. In a couple of days, this will be Ukrainian. And it is significant. Here you have Veseloye, as you can see. We have all of these airstrikes, the destroyed vehicles and bombs and what have you surrounding the town. This is Mayakovsk 73 in his map, by the way. But what can Ukraine do if they grab this town? Well, they can push out to Sukhinovka. And from Sukhinovka, they can push towards Glishkovo, Svanove, Karish, or even pushing out westward to help out at Tetkino over here. They can also focus on grabbing these border towns, which would open up Ukrainian logistics, so more troops and manpower can come into this Glishkovo region, into Kursk Oblast, allowing Ukraine further advances in the area. And they are also in a position where they can push towards this Sadovoye and Glishkovo, another Glishkovo, a small industrial town, this Glishkovo. And this is where Russian logistics come in. They're coming in from Snagost and a railroad bridge here. There's a highway going here to Glishkovo, and then it continues up to Kubylki and Glishkovo. So if Ukraine can push out here, they cut logistics to this entire region. And once they have Veseloye, they can focus on this town. They can also focus on the border to bring in their own logistics, and they can push north to Sukhinovka and coming close, being right smack in the middle of the Glishkovo County district, which gives them very many options where they want to go next. A push straight for Glishkovo, unlikely, lots of open fields. They will be easy targets. You also have Russian defensive lines in the area. So going for Sukhinovka, you can utilize cover. You have lots of windbreaks, forests, and what have you, where you can move through without getting, and where you get some cover from artillery and airstrikes and the drones. And then you're in the town itself, which provides cover once again. So I think this goddamn headset. Oh, some morning coffee. Anyway, so I think that when Ukraine grabs Veseloye, they have three main options where to go next. And it is Glishkovo here to cut the Russian logistics, border towns here to open up their own logistics, or Sukhinovka. It's a town very close to Veseloye. There's cover between the towns that they can use to avoid being hit. And if they have Sukhinovka, then they have a forward base of operations right smack in the middle of the entire Glishkovo area, and from here they can make decisions where to go next. So, I mean, the Russians, they know this as well. it's not like Russia's going to let this happen without a fight. This means Russia will be bringing in troops from over here, this front line. They will have to pull forces from this fight to reinforce these 3 points to deny Ukraine any further gains in the area. And this will obviously make it difficult for Russia to advance over here, meaning they have to draw forces from somewhere else along the Kursk front to support the fighting over here, and yada yada yada. So it's going to be a shift of forces from one front line to the next, from Koronevo down to Darino, over to tiny Glushkovo, and from here over to Sukhanovka, from here over to Tetkino, because over here we are seeing a lot of artillery, but nothing on the maps is happening. Very confusing. So over here, massive amounts of artillery surrounding the town of Tetkino, but nothing on the maps. Very strange. Anyway, so that is the situation, and that is the importance of Veseloye. If Ukraine grabs Veseloye, you will begin to see this shift of manpower within Russian lines, where they start moving troops from elsewhere in Kursk down here, from here over here, and then onward. And if Ukraine can keep pushing in this area and keep causing Russian casualties, Russia will have to pull forces from other parts of the front down in Ukraine to support Kursk, so that they can support over here, and so that they can keep supporting this Glushkovo county, this entire district. So that's how important Veseloye is. And as you can imagine, Russia won't let this just happen. They will bring in forces to try and stop the Ukrainians. So anyway, that's it. Yeah, that's going to have to be it. Not much else to add. Please do check out the comment section, because I think the Russians are going to be very upset that I'm using Surak maps to prove my point. That's not part of the Russian narrative, so they're going to get pissed off about that. And they will also mention Vuhledar a bunch of times as well. What about Vuhledar? That town that Russia has been fighting at for over a year. It's taken them more than 900 days to grab the town. The battle itself lasted for a year, thousands of Russian dead, hundreds of destroyed Russian vehicles. It's a complete disaster, a Pyrrhic victory. And but the Russians, the narrative is, yeah, we took Vuhledar at an insane cost. Proof that the Russian military is incompetent, proof that Western weapons are overpowered, and proof that Ukrainian soldiers are courageous, brave, and they have no intentions of giving up. Anyway, that's it. Gå på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.